Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 184 of the show, and before we get started, I'm going to do a bit of house cleaning quick because, well, you guys don't like to do it around here, so it's only fair that we do it. So let's just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It really does mean a lot to me guys. Constantly take time out of your days to download these episodes, to share these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, which, hello, now you can see my face again. Yeah, I get it. Like, we finally figured out a setup that was at least reasonable, manageable here in the new dorm room to actually do video version. So here we are. I do want to say thank you guys for, being patient with me, because I know, like, we keep swapping back and forth. It's like, oh, I'll do a video version this time, or I'll do an audio version. So I really appreciate that you guys are patient with me with that. I do also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers. You guys are great. Thank you for continuing supporting the show. Also, we are close to 2,600 total downloads, so thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we can still hit 3,000 by the end of the year, or at least 3,000 before the 3-year anniversary of the show, which is still crazy to think about. But, that'll come in its own due time. So I do want to say this, especially given today's episode. We're going to be talking about something. It's more of like two issues that surprisingly happened at the same time. So it's only fair that we lump them together because it talks about the exact same, the same item, same company, same product, whichever, however you want to phrase it. We're going to be talking about the PS5 situation, where I know I say situation, but it's really two different situations that happened, but it hasn't been the best couple of weeks for Sony, to say the least, regarding the PlayStation 5. So first, we're going to talk about the first controversy, which Austin Evans had posted a video about, where there's two different versions of the PS5 now. I know that, like, hear me out here, because you're probably like, Josh, we already know there's two different versions. Yes and no. What we're primarily referring to in this case is that there's the PS5s that were sold at launch, and then the PS5s that people are currently getting now. And when it comes to the new ones, what Austin Evans revealed in his recent video was that the heatsink is actually smaller with the new PS5s. And based on what testing he conducted in his video, which we'll get to that, it shows that the PS5 ran significantly hotter, about a couple 5-ish degrees more around. So basically the PS5 started operating at around 65 degrees Celsius. So, we're going by Celsius because that's what the rest of the world uses, even though I get it in America, we use Fahrenheit because, we're lame. But let's just get on with it. So why was this such a big deal? Why do people care? Why are people outraged about this? Here's what people have to be concerned about when we talked about it, because Austin clearly stated in his video that the smaller, or primarily the testing that he did, was not 100% scientific. It clearly requires more intensive testing. It clearly requires more testing to be done in different ways, because the way he did it, he even mentioned this isn't 100% scientific, so please do not take this as objective fact, which, let's be real here, welcome to 2021, where anything you say on the internet will be taken out of context, and, well, you're pretty much screwed, because anybody will just take whatever you use, take it out of context, and then use it to support their own narrative. That's just how the media operates in today's society. Sorry if it hurts your feelings. Tech influencers will get to you eventually. Oh yeah, we'll get to y'all eventually. But in the case of the PS5, yes, a lot of people are upset. People are like, well, that's not fair. It's not fair that Sony thinks it's a bright idea to cheap out. Like, that's some of the terminology that's being used as Sony's cheaping out with the PS5s and putting smaller heat sinks, so they're not able to dissipate heat as much, because obviously the whole idea, especially, you know, people that build their own computers, having a bigger heatsink is usually better due to the fact that it's able to disperse heat more and it's able to distribute it properly rather than letting it, you know, obviously having a smaller heatsink. So let's use an example here in this case. We built my friend's computer. We upgraded it with the 5800X, and we ended up using a small Noctua cooler. Yes, is it better than, you know, in terms of quiet and performance, is it better than the stock cooler that comes with AMD processors? Yes, but we've also noticed that it also doesn't manage the heat so well because it is a much smaller heatsink. It's primarily designed for smaller cases. We just thought, well, maybe a lower profile would be better in this case. And yeah, it still keeps it cool. It just doesn't do a better job as, say, like a bigger heatsink for a processor that generates a lot of heat. And in the case of the PS5, we've already seen that compared to the Xbox Series X, the PS5 does run hotter, you know, by at least a couple degrees, like 3 to 5 degrees, but still hotter. Like, that's just objective fact here. Now, the fact that now it's running even hotter, a lot of people aren't too happy about that. Consumers are a little bit upset because, like, well, how do I know if mine's one of the launch PS5s or this one is just, you know, one of the newer releases? It's kind of hard. Like, let's be real, it really is hard to tell. And Austin has definitely generated a lot of buzz on the internet about this. Definitely has not put Sony in a good limelight, which the next situation definitely didn't help their case at all. But here's what we're getting at. Austin admitted that his results were not 100% scientific. This isn't 100% objective fact, so let's take it for what it is and just, you know, it was just his findings. Even Digital Foundry responded, because some people were trying to say, oh, Digital Foundry roasted Austin. Digital Foundry didn't roast Austin in any shape or form. They literally just said, hey, Austin, you made a great video. We reached out to Sony. We're going to do our own testing. That's pretty much it. Like, they're going to do their own testing. And a lot of people really respect Digital Foundry with how thorough their testing is with a lot of things. So it'll be interesting to see what they find, and if maybe what they find ends up lining up with what Austin showed, which Austin even admitted he's still going to be doing more testing, which I get it. Big tech YouTubers are not in the best limelight, especially, well, in today's society. Let's be real. Yes, people still watch them. People still like them. But in terms of buying power, or I would say people making their purchasing decisions, bigger tech YouTubers are not everyone's forte to at least trust everything they say, which we will address that conversation in a later episode. We will. But what's the other situation that Sony managed to get themselves into? Because it honestly feels like this company always keeps trying to find a way to get themselves into some deep water. The only times they don't are probably like in terms of movies, like with the Spider-Man trailer, or, well, they were already in a bad place to begin with because they didn't release the trailer and everyone was mad. And then they finally released it and everyone's like, yay, amazing. And then obviously the camera division, let's be real, Sony cameras are great. I'm not, I got one right here, so I like it. It's nice. I like my Fuji more for videos, so that's why we're still using the Fuji for recording the show. But the other situation is, yes, it also is with the PS5. It's just a little bit different than just hardware issues. So what happened is Sony came out, and we already knew for a long time that Sony is not offering upgrade paths from PS4 games to the PS5 version, unlike Microsoft, where you can buy the Xbox One version and you automatically get the Series X, Series S version, which a lot of people really prefer that. That's called smart delivery. A lot of people really prefer that Microsoft's approach to handling the next generation of consoles in comparison to Sony, which, yes, let's be honest here, in terms of the console space, primarily starting with the PS4, Sony has definitely not been the most consumer-friendly company. They understand, in this case, like the leader in terms of selling consoles. Let's be real here. People like to buy a ton of people like buying the PS5. People like buying the PS4 in comparison, because let's be real, Xbox was not in a good place with the Xbox One. It wasn't until Phil Spencer took over and became the head of Xbox where things began to change and they began to focus on a more consumer-friendly or consumer-first mindset. Doesn't mean they get it perfectly, but at least they still listen to their consumers, which a lot of people agree that Sony is starting to go down the rabbit hole of Nintendo, where Nintendo, let's just be real, they're not the most consumer-friendly company. They never have been, never will be. That's just objective fact, because Nintendo is some pretty stubborn people. And you schmucks still keep buying their games. So, joke's on you guys. I'm part of them because, let's be honest, I have a Switch too, so I'm technically one of those schmucks too. So, but in the case of Sony, this whole controversy started with the Horizon Forbidden West, where it was already announced when it's coming out and everything, and they revealed the pre-orders and everything for it, and it showed that there would be no free upgradability path, which a lot of people were upset that people had to basically, so if you don't have a PS5, you have to buy it on your PS4, and then you have to spend even more money to upgrade it to the PS5 version whenever you're able to get a PS5. A lot of people were not happy about that, and some people were even trying to defend Sony that it makes sense, even though your competition doesn't do that and is not charging the $70 premium that Sony believes is fair, which I still think, let's be real here, I don't think the games justify being $70. I'm just being honest with you. And a lot of people were trying to compare this to Microsoft selling the digital deluxe version that comes with the car pass and everything for Forza Horizon 5 for $80. And people are like, ooh, that includes the $10 tax that you said Microsoft would never do. No, it doesn't. It's still $60 no matter if you buy the standard edition. It's $60. It's saying $60 whether you buy it on the Xbox One, Series X, Series S. Still the same. It's just a $20 DLC car pack because obviously, let's be real here, especially with Forza being a game about cars, there's probably some unreleased cars in there that are going to be showed off in newer movies down, later in the year or as time goes on. So obviously they can't just throw them in right away because companies would prefer to actually put them in movies first and then, put them in a video game so that you can go drive them. It's just common sense. It's logic. But with the Forbidden West situation, yeah, a lot of people were defending Sony, and there was a lot of backlash online about it where consumers were actively raising their voices at Sony. They're like, hey, this is not cool. We're not going to support this kind of mentality of making us pay more just for the same game. And surprisingly, Sony listened. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, Sony did it because this was their whole plan. I'm like, guys, stop being Sony bootlickers for once in your life. Like, we get it. Like, even me, somebody that I openly admit I like Xbox. Like, even though my first console ever that I've ever personally owned was a PS2, then I owned a Nintendo DS, then I owned a 3DS, then I got a Wii, then I ended up getting an Xbox 360 when I was 13, then I got the Xbox One, and obviously now I have the Series X. But even I can admit, we still have to call these companies out on their BS because let's be real here. As much as these companies will try to do better practices for consumers and stuff, these companies are still not your friends. At the end of the day, you are a dollar mark to them. That's all. You are literally just a dollar bill to them. If they can make money off you and milk money out of you, they most certainly will, and they will find any way to do it. In the case of Sony, they definitely believe that, hey, we can use our advantage and our leverage that we have with consumers to do whatever we want. And clearly, it backfired and blew up in their face. Now, is this going to change with other Sony games going down the line? I get it. People are saying that, oh, Sony has changed their mind, that this is their, plan going forward. And I'm like, well, you guys have already been in the bad limelight of the press for a couple weeks now. Like, Sony has been not in the best of shape, especially given how they've been handling a lot of things. A lot of people have been calling for Jim Ryan to resign because of his poor, decision making with the PlayStation brand. And yeah, I get it. Like, everyone has their own personal opinion. To me, I just think that in comparison to what Microsoft is doing and how Microsoft has handled this generation so far, they've definitely done a much better job. Does that mean that they're perfect? No, because they still have made some pretty bad blunders. Let's be real here. We're not going to pretend like the Halo Infinite situation doesn't exist. Let's just be honest here. There's been some blunders. There's been some blunders of not showing a lot of games, which we know they're here, we know they're coming, and especially with the release of Psychonauts 2, which so far I've been playing and I've been really enjoying it. This is where we're at right now. And I get it. Sony is trying their best because they realize, like, hey, we're the market leader in this case, even though logistically speaking, they're really not the market leader when we look at the actual market itself, because the market includes PC gaming, console gaming, mobile gaming. And Microsoft literally owns 80% of the market because, one, they own all PC gaming because PC gaming's on Windows. Microsoft owns Windows, so they own the PC space. They got a good portion of the console space. Granted, maybe not as much as Sony, but Microsoft also owns the mobile space because of Xbox Game Pass and being able to be put on smartphones, which mobile gaming is starting to take off. Cloud gaming is starting to become more popular. At the end of the day, with both of these situations, when it comes to PlayStation, it's really not looking good, and Sony's really not in the best limelight. Now, will people still go out and buy PS5s? Yes, they will. Like, to be honest, the average consumer probably doesn't care about thermals. They don't care about thermal performance. They don't care about what a heatsink is. They don't care. Like, they really don't give a rat's butt cheeks about it. They really don't. Now, we could talk about another situation that also people have been upset about Sony, which is the whole upgrade to SSD thing. I don't really think that's super important to talk about, but we can acknowledge it because a lot of people did have some backlash about it where they're like, well, yeah, it's cool. Like, this was a whole debate people had where it's like, okay, what's better? Is it better to have your own proprietary solution or just partner with manufacturers to, like, you know, just sell normal PC SSDs? Which my own take on it is, I do not believe that the average parent is going to know what SSD is compatible. Let's just be real here, because Sony hasn't even been that clear about which SSDs are going to be compatible. There's only one SSD that's compatible, and it's pretty much the exact same price as the Microsoft SSD, the little chip that's proprietary. So to me, it's kind of up in the air. I'm not too confident in, like, just the average parent knowing, because they're just gonna be like, oh, SSD, well, this one works, and then just hope it works, and it doesn't work, and it probably ends up bricking the system or something like that. I like the idea of proprietary. Sony has done proprietary before, and it's worked. Like, the PS2 had proprietary memory cards, so they can do it. I do like Microsoft's approach a little bit more, due to the fact that, you know, it's the exact same speed as the SSD inside the Xbox, so there's no difference, there's no latency, it's literally the exact same thing. It's a nice SSD. Is it expensive? Yes, because let's be real here, it's a proprietary device, expensive, it's got a lot of manufacturing, a lot of, just a lot of stuff to go into it. But in my opinion, Sony has definitely just been making a lot of blunders. I know that they're still going to sell a lot of consoles. These consoles are still going to sell out. People are still going to pay scalping prices to buy them, even though I get it why people would pay the scalper prices, but it's just like, guys, yes, these things will eventually be in stores. You'll be fine. Like, you don't need to go out and rush to get one. Let's just be real here, because the PS5 doesn't really have that many amazing games right now. Like, Returnal's good. Returnal is a good game. Ratchet and Clank was also good, but aside from that, you don't really have much reason to buy a PS5 right now. You really don't. Like, next year you probably will, because we're getting God of War, we're getting Horizon Forbidden West, we're gonna get Ghost of Tsushima, the upgraded version of it. To me, it's just a weird situation right now. I do agree, like, the thermal things, or I'd say the thermal performance situation, that is going to be interesting to look at in the long term, when we actually see, like, how does this, like, compare to, like, a launch version versus the version that's being sold right now. How do they compare maybe a year or two down the line to see, like, how does the thermal performance, has it changed? Same thing. They're probably going to be testing with Microsoft's console, the Xbox Series X and Series S, to see how they perform after a long period of time. Has the thermals changed? What's changed over time? I think at the end of the day, this is just a very bad look for Sony. I know some people say, well, Sony fanboys don't really care. The Sony ponies will keep bootlicking Sony as much as they possibly can, which, that's fine if you want to do that. That just means that you don't want to be a part of the solution and holding these companies accountable for making poor decisions. Because let's be real here, the company's answers to us. Like, without us, they can't really do much, whether they believe it or not. So, like, I know it's a shocking idea that the consumer in this case actually has power, because without us giving them money for their products and goods and services, they can't really do much. They can't. That's why in the case of what happened with the Forbidden West situation, consumers raised their voice, made it clear that they're not okay with this, and Sony backed down and listened to the consumers. We've clearly shown that the consumer has a lot of power in this space, especially when it comes to gaming. Now, as a marketing major, also being a business student, we've also learned in our own coursework that the customer isn't exactly always right, but that's in very specific situations. In this case, yes, the customer was right in this case, because it's unacceptable that your competition is not charging a $10 premium for the same game, that they're giving free upgrade paths from the from an older version to the newer, to the newer gen version. it just was unacceptable. Like, granted, do I think Sony's going to change their mind on the $10 premium? Probably not. I don't think Microsoft realistically is going to raise to the $10 premium, especially at the point that since they're already doing the free upgrade path, it doesn't make sense to charge $10 more, because either way, you're still buying the game. There's not really, like, you're still buying the game. They're getting money off you, whether you buy the Series X version right off the bat, or if you still have an Xbox One and you buy the Xbox One version because it's easier to come by. That's just the cold hard reality of things, because it automatically upgrades to the Xbox Series X and Series S version. So it's like, it's one of those things where Sony is kind of shooting themselves in the foot right now in this generation. They haven't really done much to entice consumers to go out and buy their platform or invest into their ecosystem, because let's be real here, Sony doesn't really have an ecosystem, if we're being honest here. In comparison to the console space, Microsoft does have an ecosystem. Sony doesn't. Like, you can't tell me they don't. Like, clearly there's an ecosystem in the Xbox space compared to the PlayStation space. At the end of the day, all this can be summed up as just Sony shows time and time again why they're still anti-consumer, why, you know, as much as they try and as much as their competition slips up and makes mistakes, they always find a way to fall on their face. That's just a cold, hard reality of how Sony operates a lot of the time. Now, their other divisions, let's be real here, they're definitely much more willing to listen to their consumers, like their camera division. Whoever's running their camera division is clearly doing a great job, because they're actually listening to consumers and giving them what they want. Does that mean that they get it right all the time? No. Let's be real here. They don't get it right all the time, but they're still doing good. Their phone division, also doing good. Like, they actually found a space that works for them, a niche space that works. And their phones, for people that actually use them for what they're intended to be used for, they work. So it works in the end. But that's just my two thoughts on the whole situation. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, whether you like my opinion or not. How do you guys actually feel about Sony? Do you guys feel like this generation just hasn't been so good so far, or do you think it will be better as time goes on? Or do you feel like, yes, it's finally time that Sony became a more prosumer company that adopted more consumer-friendly practices, consumer-friendly, you know, business strategies? What do you guys feel like? Do you guys feel like, hey, who cares? They're still making great exclusives. I don't care. I don't care if their console has a smaller heatsink or not, or, you know, it could run hotter in the long run, or you don't really care about paying the $10 premium and getting milk dry and not really having upgrade paths. It's one of those situations where, you know, how do you feel? Because to you, this may not be a big issue. You honestly could probably not give a monkey's nutsack about this entire situation. I'm just being honest with you. You could probably not care one damn bit. Or this whole situation bothers you a lot, and you're like, actually, these people are onto something. Why are we letting this crap happen? You know, but at the end of the day, it's how you guys feel. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you like this video, leave a like, leave a dislike. I don't really care. I really don't. I just like doing this. It's fun. Granted, I did mention a little bit earlier in the show that we will eventually be talking about the whole idea of tech influencers and having that big conversation, because we're in a day and age where tech influencers have so much power and control over the media and how things are being presented that it's very interesting to have that kind of conversation. And I feel like, given some recent developments of how, like, people have done multiple videos about how tech companies can control the media to, like, make things go the way they want them to, and some responses to said videos, I think it's time that we finally have that conversation, because it's fair given the age we live in. But until next time, guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Please continue to be safe, guys. Don't do anything dumb. If you like today's episode, like I said, leave a like, dislike, leave a comment down below, whether you're watching it on YouTube or, you know, leave a review of the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you use for you're listening to your podcast, to be honest with. But please be safe, guys. Please continue to be kind and respectful of those around you, because let's be honest here, the world is still a weird place. As much as, you know, we're trying to go back to a new normal, the world is still pretty weird out there, guys. So please be kind. Please be respectful of those around you. Don't do anything dumb. Have a wonderful week and weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.